Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast, your weekly Newcastle United podcast on the Evermore YouTube channel. I'm your host, Chris, and unlike certain Newcastle players, I'm quite happy with my teammates this week. I've got the Lynch man, James Lynch, and I've got Lee joining me. How you doing, boys?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very good, very good. More on him in a minute, I'm pretty sure, guys. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we've got plenty to cover today, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. We're live tonight. Please jump in the comments. Let us know what you guys think about the topics we're going to cover. And if you're here for the first time, a little bit of housekeeping. We'd love you to click like and subscribe. We're looking to break that 300 subscriber mark. We've had loads of new subscribers recently, so thank you so much for that. We're about 271, I think. So if you can get us over 300 by the time this episode's finished, we'll love you forever. So listen, we're going to get stuck in. Plenty to cover, and sadly I'm going to bring you right down to earth, boys. We're going to cover the weekend because it was shitty at City, as the banner says. I'm going to come to you first on this one, Lynch man. I knew we'd probably get beat, but Jesus, I didn't think we'd get beat that bad, mate.
It was a big blow, Chris. The manner of the defeat, it was a hammering, wasn't it? Make no mistake about it, we were battered. Similar to the Spurs game a few weeks ago, it was men against boys, especially the second half. I think what that defeat proved more than anything is the majority of this team just isn't good enough at this level. Lascelles, Kraft, Longstaff, Almiron, Wood, Dubravka, for me, they just aren't Premier League standard anymore. These players just got exposed, embarrassed, really. Look, as you rightly said, I knew we were never going to get a result here. We've got a terrible, terrible record at the Etihad, and I said that on last week's show. But the manner of the defeat, more than anything, was just so disappointing for me. And what we were doing those last 5 or 10 minutes or so, I can't get my head around. Still can't get my head around after watching the highlights back again today. Players just out of position everywhere in the park, not tracking their runners. It was a shambles. Keystone cops defending, I think you'd have to say. And I think you have to question Eddie Howe's tactics in this game. I certainly did. I was really surprised he went with the usual 4-3-3. You just can't play that formation against Man City. Well, look, unless you're Liverpool, but we're far from that. And we just, to be that attacking against a side like that, to set up that attacking, you're only playing into their hands, and you're just asking for trouble. You're asking to be punished, and he should have gone with a 5 at the back, like he did against Chelsea back in March. That system really, really worked. 5 at the back. That way, you nullify their wide players. You try and restrict them to long range shots, and you just try and frustrate them and hold that defensive line as best as you can. And I just thought we were far too gung ho here, and we were punished. We were just picked off one by one. I think possibly the thought process behind the decision to go with the 4-3-3 was the injury to Cher, maybe. I think possibly Howe didn't think he had 3 good enough defenders to play the similar system to Chelsea, but he could have played Kraft at right centre-back and he could have played Mankiw at right wing-back. But look, it's all hindsight now. It's easy for me to say. But you just hope Eddie Howe learns from that, because in these big games against the top teams this season, we have been getting a bit of a pasting, haven't we?
You're right, mate. Lee, John Joe Shelby may be in your dizzy, mate, but we got Donald ducked big time, mate, didn't we? What was your take on it, mate? Who disappointed you the most out of the lads?
Well, I think for the first 15 minutes or so, we did quite well. I mean, first 15 minutes I thought was relatively easy, and we had a couple of opportunities ourselves. We scored a goal that was unluckily, well, it was ruled offside, quite rightly. City had a couple of efforts before they scored their first goal. I think it was Laporte, and I'm trying to think who the other one who got in at the back post within the 6-yard area and missed chances. The thing for me is once that first goal had gone in, it effectively becomes a training match for Man City, because they just keep the ball for fun. I think James saying that it proved that a lot of the players are not Premier League quality. I wouldn't go that far. We've got to realise here we're playing Man City. And I think what it proved is a lot of the players are way off sort of taking us up to the levels of Manchester City and your Liverpools and your Chelseas. But I think some of the players that you mentioned, James, I think they're Premier League quality, but they're not upper Premier League quality as such. If you look at the 5 goals, 3 of the goals were absolutely avoidable. First goal, it was an individual mistake by Maxi, not tracking his runner. Was called out in public by Shearer for doing so. The second goal, Dubravka's had an absolute mare again, which again kicked off the debate as to whether we need a new goalkeeper in the summer. And Kraft, for the third goal, has lost Rodri at the near post and effectively given him a free header. The fourth goal and the fifth goal are moments of, well, the fourth goal, Trippier's match fitness came into play because, let's be honest, Grealish just left him for dead. A fully fit Kieran Trippier, I don't think Grealish would leave for dead. Yeah, but it's one of those things. And the fifth goal, I'm sorry, you just have to take your hat off and say that's absolutely class. The fifth goal, I thought, was an absolutely quality goal. And the thing we've got to remember here, I mean, I never like losing. I don't like losing 1-0, never mind 5-0. But after the match on Sunday, I was disappointed, but I wasn't devastated like I might have been a little while ago, because it's Man City, and that's what we aspire to be in 3, 4, 5 years. I think, again, we saw quite a overreaction on social media and the fact that we've been 1-5-0. I'll be honest with you, my prediction for Sunday was 4-0. 5-0 didn't surprise me at all. It didn't surprise me at all. For me, the one thing that stood out for me, though, is just how nervous our back four looked with Lascelles in there. He's absolutely shit scared of the football, the bloke is. You give the difference between him and Shaw must resonate throughout the rest of the back four. What do you call it? With Kraft, with sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. But with the other members of the back four, the confidence that they've got in Shaw when he receives the ball to feet is on a different level to what it is when Lascelles there. He just wants to get rid of it as quickly as he possibly can. Now, if you're talking about Premier League quality and people who need to pedal, Lascelles for me has got to be absolutely at the top of that list. It has. For me, as I say, we look at Sunday. That's where we aspire to be. Don't dwell on it. Move on. Because I think I mentioned on Twitter immediately after the match, we'll go back next season and I think we'll give them a far, far, far better game.
I think you're right. Do you think Lascelles puts Burn on edge as well? Because Burn looked a bit shakier than he normally does. And do you think he was worried about Lascelles getting caught out and he didn't have that kind of composure of Fabian Schär next to him, do you think? I
had a brain fart about 30 seconds ago. So Kraft, Target and Burn all looked all the more shakier, and I think Lascelles contributes to that because they've got so little confidence in Lascelles' ability on the ball when we play out short from the back of it and we try and sort of play in triangles and what have you. It makes them nervous, and all of a sudden they just want to get the ball on the pitch. Whereas with Schär there, it just gives them that extra level of confidence in the four of them as a unit. Lascelles I think he has a negative mental impact on the rest of the team.
I couldn't agree more. Jeff's in the comments there. Even Jeff, Lascelles puts a keeper on edge too. I think is just what you said, Lee, as well. Lynchman, just for you here to bring you in, mate. We had a couple of really clear-cut chances as well, didn't we? Chris Wood with that header, and then obviously a very rusty Callum Wilson with a one-on-one chance, mate. Do you think that we need to do better with that? Maybe it's a bit harsh on Wilson, mate. But do you think Wood needs to do better with that?
Well, I was just about to say I was extremely critical there in my opening bit about the team, and rightfully so in my opinion. But on the flip side, we did have a couple of decent chances. Lee talked about them. Got to put them away though. Chris Wood, that header in the first half, he's got to put that away. He's a Premier League striker. How has he not scored that goal? I mean, yes, he put one in the back of the net with Bruno being offside. Fine. I don't think you can be too critical over Callum Wilson. The chance he had near the end when he's put one-on-one with Edison. He hasn't played in 4.5 months. So you give him a pass for that. You expect him to bury that chance against Arsenal or Burnley. But I do think, a couple of positives to come out of this game. There was only 2 positives to come out of this game for me. It was Kieran Trippier and Callum Wilson back. Absolutely massive for us. Great to see the pair of them back. And you have to start them against Arsenal because I won't accept another defeat, another 3 or 4-0 defeat against Arsenal. I don't think it will be, by the way. We'll come on to talk about that near the end. Arsenal are a very, very good team. But we can't let this season just peter out and put in these poor performances. I didn't think we were very good against Liverpool either. And I know the scoreline was only 1-0, but that could have easily been a lot more. But look, we've got to bounce back against Arsenal. And for me, those two need to start. Kieran Trippier, Callum Wilson, they have to start that game.
If I could just throw in another positive for me, I thought in the first 20 minutes, Bruno Guimaraes just showed that he is absolutely comfortable in that company. It didn't matter whether he was facing De Bruyne or whoever. He demanded the ball and he looked Like he just looked at our
He
in that.
he lost his head a bit though, didn't he, with that challenge on Grealish? I thought.
Do you know what?
I thought that was a bad bit of discipline. That.
I was just going to say that tackle really threw him off his stride, didn't it? When he, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think all of us would love to leave one of them on Jack Grealish. It'd be sweet to get him. He did roll about 19 foot afterwards, Grealish, didn't he? But it was a bit silly by Bruno, and I think maybe lessons learned. But I think you're rightly to see him. There was a couple of times I think when he have a lovely little 1-2 and he just dropped the shoulder and he was away from. I think it might have been De Bruyne or something. It was a brilliant.
In the first 20 minutes, every single time we had possession, he demanded the ball. And it's a long time since we've had a central midfielder who's been that comfortable in that company. As I said, let's not forget we're playing Manchester City. Yeah, I mean, you compare Bruno Guimaraes, to your Jeff Hendricks, for example. And I just thought in the first 20 minutes, I just thought to myself, I mean, I've thought this time and time again already over the course of the past few weeks, we have got one hell of a player there because nothing phases him. Nothing ruffles his feathers. And he kept going till the last minute. Again, he was the one player on that pitch who walked off at the end who you thought he kept going. He really didn't sort of give an inch.
He's the only player out of our whole squad, I think, that could even attempt to get near a City squad. Not a starter, but near a squad, 100%. I'll tell you one player I was really disappointed at. I mean, obviously, John Joe Shelby was out, the Disneyland controversy running through Twitter. It didn't really bother me, to be honest with you. If he wants to go to Disneyland, then crack on, do you know what I mean? But Sean Longstaff came in. Now, obviously, Sean Longstaff's been in the news. You know, there's been talk about a contract extension. Eddie Howe said he really likes him. That performance was dire. He was anonymous. I forgot he was even playing at one point. I can't even remember him touching the ball most of the game. And there's been obviously stories out today about, you know, he's going to reject a contract offer because he wants first team football. If he wanted a new contract, James, he went the wrong way about it, didn't he? Putting in a shift like that, mate. He was dreadful.
Well, I can't believe my ears, Chris. You're slagging off Sean Longstaff, your favourite player.
Listen. No,
I've just seen a pig fly across my window there.
No, North Shields represent, right? I do love the Longstaffs, right? And like every fan, I want them to be good players because they're local lads, and it's a great story to have. But Sean, let's cut it right. Right now, Sean's not been the same player he was under Rafa. He had that knee injury. He come back. He looked like he lost a yard, and then he was coached by the worst manager to ever steal a living in the game in Steve Bruce, and he totally took him backwards. I mean, I've kept an eye on Matty on loan at Mansfield, and yes, it's Mansfield, but a bit like Elliot Anderson, he's got 6 goals. He's getting in positions again. He's making that little late run like he did in that Manchester United game, and perhaps with a bit of better coaching, Matty's got a chance to potentially be a squad player. But Sean hasn't showed anything that he's anywhere near this level. You were saying about Premier League quality, James.
I don't see how Sean Longstaff has any future at this club. I mean, if you look, let's say we sign 1 or 2 more central midfielders in the window, which is highly possible. I know strikers and defenders are more realistic targets, but let's say we sign 1 or 2 central midfielders. He's going to be 6th, 7th choice. Look, we'll bring Elliot Anderson back next season. For me, you play Elliot Anderson every day of the week over Sean Longstaff. I'm a big fan of his as well. But
the Geordie Maradona, James.
The likes of your Willocks, your Shelbys, your Joe Lintons, even they are way ahead of Sean Longstaff in the pecking order. And I just, as much as I like the bloke in terms of his work ethic, his heart's in the right place. It is. He's a good lad, a good professional. I just don't think he's good enough to take us to that next level next season. Not even as a squad player.
Lee, was he the worst? Was he the worst on Sunday, or was there worse than Sean on Sunday?
The game passed him by. It really did pass him by. And again, we've got to remember it's Man City, but Manchester City just basically rendered Sean Longstaff an absolute waste of a shirt on Sunday. And the difference between Longstaff, and again, let's go back to Guimaraes, is Longstaff is not a player who will follow the play and demand the ball. Guimaraes did that, and as a result, Guimaraes was involved. You could see he was in there. He was what you call binding tackles. Longstaff played triangles around him, and it's sad to see because listen, we all want to see local lads get a crack, but one thing I've always maintained is local being a Geordie doesn't warrant a squad place, and I think I would tend to agree. I think Longstaff would be an outstanding upper level championship player. But I do think, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I think that injury really, really knocked him back because when he was first coming through, and he was injured at West Ham, I think, wasn't it? And a tackle, incidentally, I think it might have been with Declan Rice.
I think it was Declan Rice, yeah.
Yeah, and I think up until that point, I was hugely excited about Longstaff's future, Sean Longstaff's future. But I think the injuries really, really knocked him back. He's never regained the confidence, and confidence in football it's almost everything. So yeah, I think Kalvin needs to move on, unfortunately.
Just a bit on the keeper as well. You touched upon him again, Lee. I mean, you know, we've had talks about Dubravka on this show before. I know, James, you're a big critic of what Dubravka does in terms of his errors. You know, but I mean, putting it to both of you lads, whichever one wants to jump in first. For me personally, I think we need a better keeper. Maybe it's just a keeper to challenge him for his position, keep him on his toes, because he's ever since that Rick in the Euros, he's never been the same, has he? You know, he's always just looked like he's got a clanger in him. I mean, do you want to go first on that one, James, and tell us what you think about that, mate?
Chris, there's one or two errors every game from him now. It's not like
big errors, big ones as well.
Big errors, yeah.
Big
it's
ones,
not like maybe one big error every kind of 3 or 4 games. They're happening every single game consistently. I thought he was at fault for 2 of the goals actually on the weekend. I know Lee said 1, but I thought he was personally at fault for 2. His confidence completely has been shot, as Lee rightly said. Confidence is a huge thing, especially for a goalkeeper. I don't think he believes in his own ability anymore, and I think that incident at the Euros, as you rightly say, Chris, has really put him back. You know, he's not getting any younger either. Let's be fair. I know keepers can play a lot older than outfield players, but in terms of his mental place right now, I don't think he's in the right place. You've got to go in for someone like a Dean Henderson or a Nick Pope, much younger. For me, I'd make a goalkeeper number 1 priority in the summer. I really, really would. I think Dubravka hasn't looked good for a long, long time now. Get rid of him.
Big claim, Lee. Lee, the eyebrows went up, Lee. Do you disagree?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you look at any position on that pitch, I would say goalkeeper's the least of our priorities. The absolute priority this summer has to be a goal scorer and centre forward that will play more than 15 games a season, because that takes us up at least, in my opinion, 3 to 5 places in the league. It does. We also have to bring in my opinion, a right-sided centre half. Yeah, Shaw. Yeah, Shaw's great. Yes, but when you look at the level of players that would be linked with, yeah, I think again, right-sided centre half has to be a priority. And I would also strengthen in midfield before I even consider goalkeeper. Let's just think, Henderson's going to cost what? He's going to cost nowhere short of 30 million. And if you hear what's rumoured to be our budget, because there will be one, despite what people want to believe, we're not going to spend 200 million. They'll be limited in terms of what they can spend. I think there are far bigger fish to fry than goalkeeper this summer.
You don't finish in the top 6 next season with Dubravka in goal. Simple as that. You just don't. You make far too many mistakes. And if we are targeting the top 6
if we had, I don't think we're finishing the top 6 if we had Edison in goal next season.
Look, we're not just going to sign it. We're not just going to sign a goalkeeper, lads. We're not going to blow the whole budget on a top goalkeeper. My point being was probably I didn't phrase it correctly. I would honestly be looking at a goalkeeper, striker, and a new centre half. They're the 3 positions. But if we finish with a top striker, finish the window with a top striker and a top centre half, but we still have Dubravka in goal, I'm going to be worried.
So it's a good point Stu makes in the comments. I know Jeff said before the Pope isn't playing his best football. Just to finish on this segment before we move on to the next one, because it's a doozy. Stu is saying that Howe has to be ruthless with players because if we don't deliver top 4 in the next 2 years, it'll probably cost him his job. I mean, there's already been, it's probably another podcast in itself, but there's already been Mourinho moots on Twitter about the love for Bobby Robson and everything else. So Eddie Howe will know the next 2 to 3 years, there'll be a target in mind for the owners that they want to finish. And if Eddie Howe doesn't achieve that, but I do think he'll be ruthless. I think Eddie Howe is really clever. He's very, very articulate. And I think he knows how to play the media really well, unlike the previous manager who couldn't do it at all. And I think that Eddie Howe knows what players are staying and what players are going, but he can't let on that he's going to drop any hints about that because he has to get every ounce out of those players till the end of the season. As Lee rightly says, 2 games left. slowly but surely now you'll start to see maybe the guys who ain't going to be involved next season. But I think Eddie Howe's just playing the media quite well. I think he will be quite ruthless when he needs to, lads. So listen, we could go on all night about this. We're going to move on to the next section because this one's going to be a doozy, as we say. If anybody's been living on the moon, and didn't see this, our next section is about Allan Saint-Maximin, as Mark has cleverly named him in the title for the podcast tonight. So if people didn't know already, Allan Saint-Maximin did an interview in French media, where he basically said, not to quote it all 100% verbatim, but he basically said that when I get to play with better players, I'll get 10 to 15 more assists a season. And then people will really see what I'm made of. I'll change people's mentality and all this kind of stuff. We're split on this, as is the fan base by the looks of it. Now, Lee, I'm going to come to you first before I get on my soapbox about Allan Saint-Maximin. What's your take on Maxi? Do you think, A, he was out of line for doing what he did? And do you think, B, he's still the star player and we need to have, build the team around him? Or has your opinion changed on him, mate?
The first question I would have in relation to the interview is just how far out of context has it been taken? And has it been taken out of context at all? How many ways can you dress up the fact that he's turned around and said, I would be getting far more assists if my teammates weren't as shit as they are? I mean, how do you... it has been very, very lost in translation for it to come across that way. And I think Howe's played it quite well in the press, playing it down and saying that it's been lost in translation. I believe Howe had a meeting with Maxi and the rest of the squad when the interview was released. So I think Howe's played a blinder. But personally, I genuinely believe that's what Maxi meant when he was giving the interview, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's quite funny because my son finds it absolutely hilarious just how frustrated I find myself getting with Maxi at every game. I mean, listen, I get so frustrated with him because I think the man's got all of the attributes to be one of the top 5, top 10 players in world football. I think he's that naturally gifted. I thought the same with Ben Arthur, but it's his application that absolutely lets him down. I mean, every single time he is out-muscled, that doesn't mean, A, you're injured, it doesn't mean you've been fouled, and it doesn't mean you have to lie on the floor for 5 minutes. The amount of times he does that, and it causes us defensive problems because we're a man short when, let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, the man isn't injured. The man's just playing up because of the fact that he's been out-muscled on the ball. How many times have we been caught offside because he's laid on the floor at the Gallagher end, having been out-muscled, and then gets up and sort of idles back, and all of a sudden we might want to break. And Maxi's there and he's in an offside position. So there's that. Defensively, let's be honest, the man is a liability. Sunday was a case in point. It's not in any way, shape or form defensively minded. And I don't blame the man for that. I really don't blame the man for that. But it's just, as I say, it's really frustrating because I do think the bloke could be one of the world's best. Now, Eddie Howe, you mentioned it earlier on, James. I think Eddie Howe is absolutely huge on team morale and team spirit and that team sort of ideology as such. And I think Maxi's put himself in a really, really difficult predicament with this interview. Now, whether or not he said what he said or whether or not it's been lost in translation, the seed's been sown. The seed has been sown with Eddie Howe. The seed has been sown with the rest of the squad. What's have you? And I genuinely think that for me next season, I do think we should keep it. Let me put that on record now. I don't agree with this selling in the summer notion, but I think he's got one season to prove that he's going to be able to take part in this project that we're going to see over the course of the next 3 or 4 years. Next season, in my opinion, will make Saint-Maximin or it'll break him in terms of his Newcastle United career.
Absolutely. It's a good comment there from Mark coming in. I think it was a bit of creative editing, possibly for the maximum effect, no pun intended, I'm sure, Mark. But yeah, I mean, Maximin is a massively frustrating player. I'm going to, have my take on this in a minute. But Lynchman, coming to you, I mean, you've been kind of one way and another way with Maximin. Sometimes he's frustrated you. Sometimes you've said he's absolutely brilliant. Did this interview for you? Did this change your opinion on Maxi? And did it push you one way or the other, mate?
It absolutely did, Chris. He hasn't done himself any favours at all with this. I don't understand why some players do these interviews in their home countries. I can't see what doing them, what you gain from it, or what benefits come from them. It was the same with Lukaku earlier on in the season, wasn't it? And we all know what happened to him after that. Didn't play for a while, and basically he's been put on the transfer list this summer. I remember Kabar used to do them on a regular basis when he was nearing the end of his time at the club. It's a funny one. It's a very strange one.
Sissoko was terrible for them.
Is another one, absolutely. But look, he's done nothing to get any sympathy from any of the supporters who have been giving him a hard time this season, and rightly so. He has been very, very poor for large parts of the season. Nowhere near the standard that he's capable of. We were talking about this before we came on air. The last good game he had for us was Everton back in February, and you've got to imagine what the rest of his teammates think about the whole thing. And I can't imagine it being very positive. Now, you can look at the whole interview two different ways. Firstly, if I'm being brutally honest, he's not wrong with what he's saying. We all know Chris Wood isn't good enough. One of the worst strikers I've seen at Newcastle in a long time. And I think that comment, or one of the comments, was mostly aimed at him. I don't think he comes out and says some of these things if Callum Wilson had played every game this season. I don't think so, because I think he respects Wilson, and I think he works very well with him. But what annoyed me about these comments was the fact that he had to make it public. He's completely thrown his teammates under the bus. And let's be fair, very, very hypocritical, these comments. And that, again, he's been dreadful for the last few months. One other way of looking at it, I said you can look at this two different ways. The other way of looking at it is, does he want out? Does he want to leave? Has he outgrown his time here? Does he want to go back to France possibly? Is he thinks doing an interview like this is another way of basically just saying, sell me? Quite possibly it might be. I would be sad to see him go in one way, but I still think he is a class player. He's got bags of talent, and I do believe, like a lot of others, he would be a better player with better quality players around him. But his attitude stinks. It's terrible. And this interview, I think, could be the final nail in the coffin for him. Eddie Howe won't tolerate something like that. I know he's come out in the press and he's done well with how he's handled it, but of course he's going to say that. Eddie Howe doesn't like bad apples in the squad. He doesn't like bad apples in the dressing room. He's so passionate about having the right characters, the right mentality, the right professionals at the club. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was sold in the summer now. I think it's very difficult for him to come back from this, Chris.
We've got a few comments there just to go through. I think Stuart mentioned about obviously Maxi, in 6 months he might not be the fans' favourite. I mean, I'd argue with some fans he's not the fans' favourite. Now, great comment by Mike. I'm going to go back into this in a minute, but he's gifted but lazy. He's not prepared to put a shift in, gets found out against the better teams, and he obviously Man City exploit that. And then a comment from Jeff there, he'd give Maxi a go until January, and if he's not, pulling up any trees there, he'd sell him. Listen, for me, my take on this is, this lad thinks he's a better player than he is. He really does. We've had players like this before in the past, and to be honest with you, he's not even the best of the lot of them. Ginola, Robert, Ben Arthur, I'd put all three of them ahead of him, right? He has been very fortunate to have been the best player in a shite side under a shite manager, and that's what's given him this kind of pedestal that he sits upon with the fans. I've watched him for so long, and all these stats that come out, he dribbles. Where does he dribble to? I can't remember the last time he actually dribbled anywhere that he didn't dribble back and then lose the ball and put us under pressure. As you said, James, the last good game he had was Everton. Before that, you're struggling, probably Burnley. Before that, you're struggling even more. This lad had the audacity to talk about himself and Sadio Mane in the same sentence. I hit the punch bag at the gym. I wouldn't say me and Tyson Fury are in the same league. I mean, the guy is absolutely deluded, in my opinion. And what you don't need either is, as Lee rightly said, this brilliant team ethos that Eddie Howe has created. Eddie Howe will be absolutely raging at this guy, going off and doing that. I think it also speaks volumes about how weak our captain is as well, because you don't talk out of turn like that, because the captain will rattle you when you come back. I know Lascelles used to be like that, but he's not anymore. That's pretty clear. But going back to Maxi in particular, for me, honestly, people need to remember that we are no longer Mike Ashley's Newcastle, and we are no longer Steve Bruce's Newcastle, right? This lad has done fuck all, really, for months and months, right? And he's standing there talking like he's the best player in the league, never mind Ballon d'Or winner, right? And I'm sorry, mate, but you need to look at yourself. Yes, Wood is shit, right? We know he's shit, right? But you saying he's shit is not going to make him any better, right? So he put a cross in on Sunday that Wood should have buried, right? Fair play. But that's probably the only cross I've seen him put in since Wood's been here. So he needs to look at himself a lot more than he looks at other people. And for me personally, I don't think he's got much else to give. I would upgrade in the summer. I'd get rid, let somebody else have him and just upgrade and get a player who can put a shift in. And you watch his career tank, because this is the best club that he can be at. And for me, I think he's taken a massive gamble here with this. He's lost a lot of the fans. I think he's lost me, certainly. I'm sick of him, And, I'll stop ranting now and I'll get your take. Lee, you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, on the fact that he's lost the fans, it's absolutely noticeable. Around me, there's been a turn over the course of the past 3 months. The criticism he's getting from the stands it's very loud, it's very vociferous, and what have you. And he must hear that. He must hear that, because it's not just coming from where I sit in the stadium. One thing I think he should have potentially thought about before this interview, especially, and you talked about James, you thought it was aimed at Chris Wood. How many times does Chris Wood actually do Maxi's press for him? Because he's either out of position or he just simply can't be asked. Chris Wood does a lot of the donkey work, in my opinion, in terms of the press that Maxi should be doing. Again, the reason I think we shouldn't, peddle him in the summer is what James said. We will have better players next season. We will spend money this season. We've got Trippier back. We've got Wilson back. Obviously, Bruno's now in and settled. We'll invest in the summer. Next season, I think that better players excuse that is potentially used, if it's not lost in translation, that excuse disappears. And that's why next season it's make or break for the bloke, because you can't use poor players around me anymore.
Do you think he's an Eddie Howe player, lads?
I don't.
Is he an Eddie Howe player? Because as long as Eddie Howe's at the club, I don't think Maximin's going to be at the top of his game. I thought he played very well under Steve Bruce, because Steve Bruce put an arm around him. He gave him license to do what the hell he wanted. He had no discipline with him in terms of he could go on his holidays whenever he wanted if he was injured. Maxi loved that. He realises he can't do that now under this manager. And I think certain managers and certain players just don't match. And I don't think Eddie Howe will get the best out of Saint-Maximin. I really, really do.
He may not be an Eddie Howe player, but one thing he absolutely categorically is the type of player that Newcastle fans throughout my lifetime have absolutely loved. Talking back through Gaza, talking through Peter Beardsley's, talking through your Ben Arthurs and people, your Esprias. Newcastle fans, I would probably say more than most, love a talisman. Now, in my opinion, it's Eddie Howe's job to turn him into an Eddie Howe player.
Is there an argument to give him a little bit more leeway than other players, like Eric Cantona got with Alex Ferguson? Is there that argument to say you just treat him with kid gloves a little bit and just let him?
Are we good enough to do that, though? Are we a good enough side to cover him and do that? I mean, since Matty Targett's come in, he's been brilliant, to be fair. And I think he saves Saint-Maximin way more than prior to that when Matt Ritchie was there. You know what I mean? But can we afford to take that kind of gamble on our side? How many times does he show up? Do you know what I mean, Lee?
The thing I would say is, right, Monday night, it's 9:30, it's 0-0. Yeah, who would you rather Matt Targett look up, he's got the ball at his feet, we've got a break on, would you rather Matt Targett looked down the line and saw Jacob Murphy or Allan Saint-Maximin? And I guarantee you, 48 out of the 52,000 in that stadium on Monday night would rather see Allan Saint-Maximin.
But if you can upgrade on the summer and get a better player, or get a more effective player, would that not be the better thing to do?
We already need to invest in a striker. We've already need to invest in a centre half. We're potentially looking at more central midfielders, and James desperately wants a goalkeeper. Do we really need to invest in an exciting, pacey winger when we've got one who just needs a tweak?
Well, it's an interesting one. Mark's saying there, would he look better on the opposite side? I don't know. Is Targett the problem, lads, do you think? I don't think Targett's the problem. I think Maxi's the problem. I don't think he's disciplined enough. Listen, I think he's a brilliant player, Lee. Listen, I loved all the players you mentioned there. I loved them all. But I don't remember them. I mean, even Ben Arthur, to be fair, who was, remember he come back and he gained about 8 stone. They called him Fatten Ben Arthur. I actually think Ben Arthur had more in his locker than Maxi did. I think he had more pace. I think he was a better finisher. Certainly a better finisher than Maxi. Honestly, when Maxi shoots, I worry about my windows, and I live in North Shields. So his shooting is terrible, man. But I love a skillful player. But you're right, you have to have people behind there to cover him. But I just think at the minute, because of the way Eddie Howe's got this team working, yes, they've had to go from the bottom to where we are to survive. And I think potentially next season, if we do have a little bit more kind of wiggle room, and we're not as stuck in a relegation fight, you might be able to take a bit of a risk with Maxi. But I just don't know if he's going to show up enough, lads. I really don't.
I'll have to show my son this because he'll not be able to believe the fact that I'm defending ASM to the level I am, given how I react to him at a match day. I just think, as I say, you look at the talent the lad's got. You look at the talent. I mean, on Ben Arthur, I personally would say Ben Arthur was a 1 in 5 player. Ben Arthur had as many, more poor games at Newcastle than he had good games. He's remembered for a goal against Blackpool, he's remembered for a goal against Everton, and he's remembered for a goal against Bolton Wanderers. Yeah. Obviously, the bloke was fantastic, but he was also an enigma in the same way Allan Saint-Maximin is.
Very similar players. Very similar
one
players.
Good game in 5. For me, I would be really, really disappointed to see Newcastle cut the losses on the bloke this summer before we've had a chance to bring in players that might help him to blossom.
Lee, James, what about on this? Lee, I'm with you fully on this, mate. Just to sum up, because I know we've done this to death, but I'm with you, Lee, on this. I just think, as I said earlier, I think after this interview, I think the writing's on the wall for him now. I think there's no coming back from after that.
Yeah, sorry, Mark's in the comments. He has to get a Jack Grealish reference in there, doesn't he? Come on, Mark. We're not talking about that bloody Fanny rolling around 18 foot, but that's a fair comment. He wasn't saying the target was the problem. He was just saying that potentially, I suppose, a more kind of experienced fullback or someone who can maybe defend and attack like Trippier does would obviously give him a bit more cover. But yeah, I mean, listen, so Maximin is a brilliant player. Listen, no one's doubting that, right? We've had this argument about Shelby for years, haven't we? It's ability over kind of application, isn't it? And I think Maxi at the minute, I'm not saying that Maxi and Shelby are the same player, Lee, but it's the point of the player can be so good, but he frustrates you because he's not putting in what he should be putting in. So I suppose just to finish on this section, lads, before we move on to the next one, is, as you rightly said, Lee, the pressure's on Maximin now because this club is going places. We're investing in the squad. We're looking to better ourselves next season. Eddie Howe won't suffer him dragging his heels, being complacent, rolling around, throwing his hands up in the air, blaming his teammates. He won't accept that next season. And I honestly think that he'll have competition for his place next season. And unlike it was under Bruce, I think, if he doesn't shape up, he'll be on the bench and then he'll be gone in January. We'll just get these comments done, lads, before we move on. So Larry's saying, I don't think there's a priority to get rid of Maxi at the moment. It's just what you said, Lee. I'm sure he'll be given another chance for next season, but he must perform if he wants to stick around. Absolutely. And Jeff is saying that things with Ginola and Robert both had issues, but far better players around them. That's a fair point, Jeff. I mean, Robert kind of had the good bit and the bad bit, didn't he? But I mean, I think, if you ask me which one of those players I'd rather have all day long, Robert would be top of the list for me. What about you, lads, before we move on? If you had to choose out of Maxi, Ben Arthur, Ginola, Robert, who you choose in one choice?
Ginola, by far, is my favourite Newcastle player of all time. Ginola, number one. Easy.
Lee?
One word, Robert.
Robert for me. Anyone who can like take the goal out of the ground from 40 yards has got to be my left winger, to be honest with you. He was unbelievable.
His goal scoring record was very, very good at Newcastle.
It was
better than Ginola's.
Yeah.
Better than Ben Arthur's. Blown Saint-Maximin's out of the water.
Ironically, we didn't see the best of Ginola. Spurs had the best version of Ginola, which was ironic considering how brilliant he was with this. But I always remember that goal he scored against Man U in the 5-0, the second goal. Never forget that goal. My favourite goal of all time, though.
For me, it's the Fenerbahce Varos one for me when he flicks it up and volleys it. That was just unbelievable. Wow. Jeff's with you, mate. He's saying Ginola and Larry's saying Gaza. We all love Gaza, mate. So listen, moving on to the next one. You got Lee's thumbs up there. So listen, next section, lads, Toon Transfer talk. Funny enough, nice little segue. If Maxi doesn't shape up, you might have some competition. We've got a couple of players to go through, so we're going to do them individually. Slightly different from Maxi, Lee. Come to you first, mate. We've had a link to Kalvin Phillips as Leeds are looking very, very close to dropping out of the league. Sorry to my mate Philip, he's watching, the Leeds fan, God bless him. But, obviously Kalvin Phillips, we all know about him, mate. He's been superb for Leeds, superb for England. Would you take him at Newcastle, mate?
Well, 100% would I take him at Newcastle. I'll come on to why in a little while. I mean, but a little bit of the background with Phillips. He's on 25 grand a week at Leeds. He's contracted, 25k. He's on literal Premier League peanuts. He's contracted till 2024, summer 2024. But let's make no bones about it. If Leeds get relegated, Kalvin Phillips will be out of Leeds like shit off a stick. He's not going to hang around. Even if Leeds don't get relegated, I still think there's a high probability that Phillips will be gone over the course of the summer, because Phillips is a regular England international. We've got a World Cup coming in November, December. Phillips is going to be wanting to be performing at an Upwoody Mobile Club at the start of next season. He's going to be wanting to guarantee his place. Yeah, so I think there's a high possibility that he'll want to be out of Leeds in the summer, whether they stay up or not. Now, there's a lot of rumours that West Ham are showing a real keen interest in him, but I think a lot of that is that West Ham are potentially just looking to replicate England's central defensive midfield with him and Declan Rice. I think one thing that will go in our favour, if we were to decide he was a target, would be the fact that he's a northern lad. He's a northern lad. He's obviously his roots are all up north. Looking at it from the outside in, without the Newcastle hat on, I think he is exactly the type of player that Manchester United need at the moment. But
that's a big divide, isn't it? The cross. That's a big divide.
That's not happening. That's not happening, because I think Phillips will have witnessed what happened with Allan Smith when he made the change from Leeds to Man United, and Smith is absolutely reviled amongst the Leeds United fan base for doing that, and that will resonate with Phillips. So I think we've got a chance. I do think we've got a chance, and the reason I'd potentially sell organs to see Phillips, I just think the Phillips and Guimaraes would work absolutely fantastically well together. Phillips had effectively become our Didier Deschamps. He would be our little water carrier, if you like. He just sits in front of the back four, breaks up play. He's another element of defence. And also what you would see is what you call it, we would concede far fewer with a player with the energy and the legs and the tackling ability and the pressing ability that Kalvin Phillips has got. Couple that with having him paired with Guimaraes in a central midfield role, and it just gets me thinking, Christ, where could this take us? So, to answer the question, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, you wouldn't mind it. We've got some great comments there. Yeah, Jeff said 30 million release clause. That is unbelievable if we get relegated. You've got to be all over that quick. And then Larry said,
I did read something about Phillips earlier. Sorry, lads. Man City are losing Fernandinho this summer. I did read that they could possibly go in for him, and they like to buy England players. So that could you imagine
getting Haaland and Phillips for less than 100 million? That is business. That's ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and just Larry saying there how versatile he's a bit like you, Lee, as well. Yeah, I think him and Bruno would be unbelievable. So a couple of other names are moving over to the Bundesliga. I'm going to start with you, Lynchman. I can't pronounce the lad's name for Toffee, but he plays for Leipzig, mate. You are the pronunciation man. So tell us a little bit about your target you've got, bud.
Christopher Nkunku. Yeah, really exciting young player.
Just rolls, mate.
He's only 24, but he's already played at two top European clubs in PSG and RB Leipzig. He can play in a few different positions. He started his career as a number 10, but he was moved into an inside forward position, and now he's virtually playing as a striker this season. And he's had the season of his life this season. 34 goals, 14 assists in all competitions already is incredible by anyone's standards. And just to put that into perspective, Mo Salah has got 30 goals and 16 assists this season. So he's already outscored Salah by more than 4 goals. And this is in an RB Leipzig team that aren't at the top of the league. He's a real talent. He will be scouted by several clubs in the summer. A real player. His awareness of his teammates around him is brilliant. He's got speed. The timing of his touches, his runs. He's clinical in front of goal. One of the best in Europe at doing it. And as I said, he's doing it at a side that isn't even top of the league. You know, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, they are the two standout teams in that league. And yeah, he's 4th top scorer in the Bundesliga this season, behind Lewandowski, Haaland, and Patrick Schick, who I also talked about a lot on last week's show, if you remember. And that's some esteemed company to be in right there. I'm sure several viewers will have watched him against Rangers recently in the Europa League semi-final. He scored in that game, albeit they didn't go through on the night, but he certainly caught the eye. And I remember he also scored a hat-trick against Man City earlier in the season in the group stages of the Champions League. Probably one of the best individual performances against a team like Man City. I've seen the Champions League in a long time. Yes, they lost that game, but for him to score 3 goals against Man City's defence was incredible. So yeah, what more can I say about him? I'm a huge fan of his. He would be a phenomenal signing, but we are going to face stiff competition.
Just a quick couple of comments on that. The fact that he's only 4th top scorer, and did you say he scored 34 goals?
That's in all competitions. He scored a lot.
Even then, 34 goals, and he's only the 4th top scorer in that division. It's absolutely crazy.
But Lewandowski and Haaland just score like 4 a game, don't they?
And another name that you mentioned, James, and I'm going to put this to you. Shtick. Would you personally choose Nkunku, or would you go for Shtick? Because I personally think that Patrick Shtick would be far, far more suited to Premier League football than Nkunku.
Yeah,
and there has been rumours of Shtick.
Well, we talked about Shtick on last week's show, didn't we, Chris, with me, you and Mark? Yeah. We talked about him in detail. Yeah, fully agree, Lee. He's a more complete centre forward. 2 very, very good players. I mean, look, Nkunku's a lot younger. Schick's, probably, I think he's 28, I think he is. So probably at his peak. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't do wrong with either of the two. But yeah, if I had a choice, I would probably go for Schick. You're right, Lee.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a superb player. As much as a Scotsman, I absolutely hated what he did to my boys in Euros, but he's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, so my transfer target, lads, just to kind of wrap up, then we've got a couple of comments with some names in there, which we'll just rattle through before we look at the Arsenal preview. So I've got Moussa Diaby, who plays for Bayer Leverkusen. So he's a 22-year-old winger. He predominantly plays on the right-hand side. He's got 13 goals and 12 assists this season. The lad is lightning fast. He's got quick feet. The way he kind of just goes by players. He's got a hell of a strike on him. He likes to get in the box. He likes to sniff around for a goal. Clearly, they're real good stats. So you're watching Allan Saint-Maximin goals and assists. They're very, very good. So for me, this lad would be a fantastic bit of business, but he's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. I think you said Lynchman has an 80 million release clause on him, but
80 million.
80 million. But for teams like Leverkusen, though, as we've seen before in the past with the likes of, I think they had Ballack, they had Berbatov back in the day, they will break for a figure. If somebody offers them 50 million quid, they will look at that, and this lad's a cracking player. He looks like he's every inch built to take on, the Premier League. He's obviously played a lot of European ties. He's never been fazed by it. And much like what Lee was saying before about Bruno Guimaraes, he's not scared looking for the ball. He comes looking for the ball quite a lot. For a winger, he drifts inside. He'll go in the up front position. He'll switch wings to take a fullback out or whatever. And he looks a really, really talented player. So for me, I'd be really excited about that, because I think we can all agree probably that we need upgrades on Almiron massively. We need competition for Saint-Maximin, whichever way we look at it. I made my feelings clear, but, if we're going to keep him, we need to have somebody keep him on his toes. And also we need competition for Fraser, because he does get injured a lot, even though he makes a mean risotto and he's James's mate. But he does get injured quite a lot, So just some of the names in the comments there, lads. That one Larry threw up, which is an interesting one. I'll smash this one out straight away, lads. Tammy Abraham is on our radar now. He's an unbelievable player, but I don't think Roma will sell him. What do you think, boys?
I'd be very surprised. He's the first player to score 25 goals in his first season in their history. The fans, we've got to remember what the Italian fans can be like, storming training grounds and things along those lines. They broke the record for the most goals in a debut season for Roma this season. If Roma even considered selling Tammy Abraham, I think they'd be absolutely hell on. So I think it's a no-go. Mourinho's come out and said
Mourinho would leave, I think, as well, wouldn't he? I think he would walk if that happened. I'd be surprised if Abraham.
I'd still rather stick over Tammy Abraham as well, by the way.
Yeah. If Josie stays, Abraham stays, no doubt about that. And Jeff saying, what do you make about Lingard's wages doing the rounds? That's a funny one, this. So apparently Jesse Lingard wants 150 grand a week. And I don't think we're breaking that wage limit. Lynchman, what's your take on that? Jesse's getting a bit cheeky there, really, mate. He's not that good of a player to start demanding that.
He is, but he's on a free transfer, isn't he? And that's the most important thing. I think that's reflective in his salary, because he's obviously, his agents probably said, look, West Ham can give you that. I think we've all talked about West Ham are probably the only competition here we've got for him. But what's Trippier on, lads? About 100, 120? Is he something like
Probably
that?
about that. I think, yeah, he's about 130 maybe or something. But I'm sure he'll have other appearance bonuses and stuff to bump it up. It won't just be.
It's like anything. If he comes in and you pay him the money and he scores you 15, 16 goals a season, it's worth it, isn't it? You've got to weigh that up. You've got to weigh that up. How badly do we want him?
Yeah. Dan's got a crack in the comments that Keith Gillespie's still playing at 47. We'll take him on. Well worth the punt, mate. Absolutely. We'll give Keith a shout on Twitter and see if he's up for it, Dan. And Larry's saying he's got a hell of a list here. He's got Nunez,
Darwin Nunez every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Which one would you pick?
Every day of the week, Darwin Nunez. Easy.
Do you know what's interesting for me? Out of that list, right? I think Schick, as Lee says, is the best built for the Premier League with everything that he's got in his locker. And to be fair to Abraham, I think he was quite unfairly dealt with at Chelsea. He's gone to Rome and he looks an even better player. So it's a gamble taking Nunez, isn't it? Because he might not cut it in the league. Same with Osimhen. Obviously, you scored against Leicester in that. But what do you think, Lee? Who would you take out of them, mate?
It's not even a discussion for me. Schick all day.
Yeah, Schick all day long.
It really is. I just think he's just got everything you need in the Premier League. Nunez may have. I just can't look past Schick.
Absolutely.
He's my pick for the summer.
It's a hell of a list. To be fair, if we get any of them, we'll be much better as a squad, going into next season. Because like you say, we can't rely on Wilson, sadly. And Chris Wood is shit, as Saint-Maximin has said. So up next, lads, we've got the Gunners. Lynchman, Lee, you'll both be there. James, coming to you first, mate. Last home game of the season. I think Lynch Senior might make it. Come on, Lynch Senior. Are you excited, mate? You buzzing?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got to bounce back. We've got to get a result here. We don't want to risk this season finishing with 3 or 4 defeats after all the hard work we put in these last couple of months. It's another tough game though, lads. Let's be fair. Arsenal are a really, really quality side. Lots of good young players. Eddie Nketiah is in good form. Scored 2 at the weekend. Took them really well. Saka can always hurt you. Martinelli, Odegaard. It's a really good side Arteta has built. To be fair to him, I will give him credit because at the start of the season, he looked like he was going to be the first manager for the chop. But look, we're going to have our 8 days rest by the time this game comes around. They've got to go to Spurs tomorrow for what is arguably their biggest game of the season. Massive game. That's basically a top 4 playoff. So you hope by the time Monday comes around, they're going to be tired, drained. They're going to be physically and mentally exhausted because that game tomorrow could be an absolute classic, full of goals. And I do expect Spurs to win that one. Form Son and Kane are in right now. They're unplayable. So if that did happen, that could make Monday an even bigger game for Arsenal, which is probably not what we want. But look, Wilson and Trippier back. They have to start this game for me under the lights. We know how good the atmosphere has been at home. Chris, you've sampled it a couple of times this season with me. It's easily the best in the league. The crowd will really make it difficult for Arsenal. Last home game this season, we've got to go out on a high. Look, I know we're safe now, and that was the main priority, but I'd really like to see us finish as high up the table as we can because look, it could give us that extra little boost in the summer window, those few places. And look, I don't think a top 10 finish now is achievable after the last 2 defeats. We don't want to be finishing as low as 15th, though. That wouldn't be a fair reflection on this team and what they've achieved. Another couple of wins on the board, or, maybe 4 points, we'll finish 11th or 12th. You'd take that. I think this will be a really good game, just to summarise. Another chance for Bruno to express himself and see what he can do with Callum Wilson in the team. I can see lots of goals in this one. And if I'm going to go out on a limb now and give you a prediction, I'm going to go for 2-2.
Ooh, a Desmond. He's gone for a Desmond, Lee. What's your take on it, mate? You're buzzing for it, mate. You can't wait for it. I think War Flags have got some big plan, haven't they, mate? You said earlier on.
Yeah. The first thing I would say, though, is Newcastle playing at home on a Monday night. What's this witchcraft? Yeah. Somebody at the Premier League or somebody at Sky Sports is getting sacked, aren't they?
Yeah, it's dreadful.
We're supposed to be playing 300 miles around a Monday night, aren't we? And in all seriousness, I genuinely, Monday night under the lights at St James's Park, there was a lot of people who were upset about the fact that it got changed to Monday night. But let's be honest, who doesn't love a night game at St James's Park? War Flags have announced just late this evening that they want all fans to be in the ground minimum of 5 minutes before kickoff, because apparently every seat in the stadium is going to have something on. So they've obviously got something huge planned, and the atmosphere is just going to be, I think, another level to what we've seen even before this, and we know what the atmosphere has been like for every single home game since October the 7th, James. You've experienced them all yourself. But as you say, it's going to be a really tough game. Arsenal are a very good side. I mean, they got, before tonight's Chelsea game at Leeds and Arsenal's game against Tottenham tomorrow, you've got to remember, Arsenal are only 1 point behind Chelsea. So it's not just the Tottenham element that they'll be looking at. They'll be looking to try and finish third if they possibly can. And Arsenal, as I said, are a very decent side. That said, as you say, we've got Wilson and Trippier back. I think we'll definitely give them a game. I really do think we give them a game. But Arsenal are one of those teams that I would fancy us to be able to nick something off. I said at the start of the show, Manchester City, Liverpool, I go into those games expecting, this season, even past October 7th, I went into those games expecting a defeat. Same with Chelsea. Arsenal are a team that can be got at. And as you say, they'll be still suffering from Thursday night, because that will take them out of them. They're taken out of them, not just physically, but also emotionally. It's a North London derby with everything on the line. So emotionally, we can't underestimate how much that will take out of the Arsenal players as well. So for me, the thing I'm looking forward to most about Monday night is probably post-match, win, lose or draw. I'm just looking forward to the whole stadium taking the opportunity to show Eddie Howe and his staff and the players just how much we appreciate what they have achieved, because what they have achieved is it's mind-blowing when you think where we were, what he inherited. And I think the reception that they will get at the final whistle, and believe me, they will get a reception at the final whistle, will stay with us for a long, long time. I was there against Liverpool a couple of years ago for Rafa's last game. Liverpool on a Saturday night, we lost 3-2. And Rafa and the players did a lap of honour and what have you. I don't think that will even come close to the reception that these guys are going to get on Monday night. And I can't say anything other than they thoroughly deserved it. Personally, I don't want the season to end. I'm as much dreading Monday night as I am looking forward to Monday night. I don't want this season to end. I've been going to watch Newcastle since 1983. And this is one season, amongst a couple of others, that I will literally take to the grave with me. Reason being, this is the season that I reconnected with Newcastle United. It's the season that collectively as a fan base, we got hope again in our club, and we had belief in our club. And again, it's the season that my son, who's 17 and has only ever seen the Mike Ashley era, it's a season that I was able to show him this is what this football club can be when everybody's on board and everybody's pulling in the same direction. So I'm quite torn between absolutely cannot wait for it, but at the same time, absolutely dreading this season ending.
Lee, you're going to make me cry, mate. Bloody hell.
Oh, mate,
that was amazing. Well said, mate. Really well said.
Superb. I think Mark's going to have to clip that one, mate. That's like, I feel like playing the Titanic theme tune behind you, Lee. That was beautiful. What's your prediction, mate? What's your prediction?
I think we'll win 2-1.
Do you know what? I was just looking at the comments there. Yeah, Jeff's all over that. I was going to say that as well. He thinks Wilson and Trippier free kick. Mate, obviously, listen, Lee, what you said there was brilliant. Do you know as well? It was honest and pure from a fan perspective, and I think Eddie Howe, rightly so, as you say, and Tyndall and the rest of the guys and the players as well, they all deserve every ounce of the adulation they get, because what they've pulled off is nearly impossible. We were dead and buried. Everybody just wrote us off, even the fans did as well. So I think 100%, mate. I won't be in the ground like you boys. I'll be watching on TV, but even through TV, I'll be able to feel it. And I just think we all absolutely will just probably there'll be tears in our eyes, mate, as you rightly say. But do you know what? I fancy it, because I think you made a good point, lads, that in that Spurs and Arsenal game, that's massive. Like you say, it's like a playoff final, James. And I think both of those teams will not they'll leave it all out on the pitch. They won't have anything left in the tank after that game. And I think for Arsenal, I was listening to Talk Sport earlier, and I think it was Laura Woods who's an Arsenal fan, and her dad's a Newcastle fan, funny enough, so that's quite funny. But she was saying, as Arsenal fans, they're all dreading Newcastle away. They're worried that's a banana skin for them. And it's, as Lee rightly said there, it's wonderful, again, to be that team where people just don't accept to rock up to St James's Park and leave with a point. They're actually worried about what we could do with them as a team. And I think with Trippier and Wilson back as well, under the lights. Listen, we've talked about Maxi as well. He needs to sign off with a performance. He needs to tell those fans like me who are getting a bit pissed off with him that he's still got something to offer. So these lads need to stand up for me. And I'm with you, Lee. I think 2-1 to us. I'd be disappointed if we didn't take the points from this game. I think there's every chance we can. Arsenal are a brilliant side, but they're not the Arsenal that, used to batter us, season on, season out. These are still young lads who are working their way through the game. So I think there's every chance that with the seasoned professionals we've got, if they stand up, I think we can get a 2-1 win, lads. I really do. Positive way to end this week's show. But listen, it's been absolutely brilliant. Everybody else in the comments as well. Mark's already told you there's one for TikTok with music behind. He's welling up. So you're definitely gonna make the social media platform, Lee, which is absolutely brilliant. But listen, thank you so much for all the comments, guys. We all love it. It really helps the show move on. And as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We've got loads of great content. I know the season's coming to an end, but we've got some great close season episodes planned. We'll do a squad evaluation of who we think we should keep, sell, buy. We're going to look at some of our all-time 11s. There's loads to come in the close seasons as well. But we've got a couple of more podcasts to do before we sign off. So until then, let's keep supporting that team of Core United. Bring on the Gunners. And from me and the lads, we'll see you later.
Take care, lads.
Cheers, guys.